You're probably clicking on this video because you have the travel bug and you've got your Interrail ticket booked for post-pandemic travel. Do not fret, you have not wasted your time. Your Interrail will come. However, let's make it fate that you've had to wait a full year, because now you have the chance to listen to my video on how to make your Interrail that little bit cheaper. Let's go. Now I'm gonna talk about my 2 trips in this video and how I cut costs and how much it did cost in general, because I am a control freak when it comes to travel and I note down every cost that I made in my first Interrail for 6 weeks. So I know exactly how much it costed me. I'm not going to beat around the bush here. I will give you numbers if that's what you're looking for. And I would also like to share my tips on how to make it cheaper. Now with Interrail, I have traveled to Eastern Europe, Western Europe. I've traveled to cheaper countries like Slovenia and Slovakia, and I've also traveled to the more expensive countries like France and Germany. And with this in mind, I would like to say that the numbers I'm about to give you are a rough guide, and if you go on the Interrail website, you'll see yourself that it depends on which city you're in. To get straight into the numbers, I would like to say that 60 euros a day is a good fair cost, and that's including absolutely everything. And it does sound like a lot of money, but when you break down the costs, you realize that that's actually a very cheap price. I found that out of all 25 plus hostels I've stayed at in my life, they've mainly varied between 20 and 30 euros in Europe. I've had a hostel for 8 euros before and it was good, but that's a rare case, so I don't want to put that in the costs. I would say ranking 25 euros is standard for a hostel, and that will get you anywhere in Western or Eastern Europe. When it comes to spending money, a lot of the stuff you're going to do is going to be free, especially if you travel smart. That being said, there are a lot of really amazing things that you'll want to do in Europe that you just can't cut the costs for that. If you dream of being on top of the Eiffel Tower, don't cut your costs, because with Interrail it can kind of seem like you're on such a budget because you're doing a wider trip than just one city that you don't want to go all out. But I would recommend spending the extra money when it comes to events or moments that's going to make your trip memorable. Like in 2018 in Slovenia, I did kayaking, I did diving, I did swimming, and I did zip lining. And that's the reason that Slovenia is one of my favorite places I've ever traveled to. Probably because I experienced the country the most. I didn't just walk about doing nothing the whole day. Now, if it's your first time interrailing, you may be a little confused about how much money you should put towards transport, because the Interrail ticket only does so much. Now, I would like to say, in my experience of 2 Interrails, I have noted that a lot of the time the app tells you need to pay for a ticket, and you get on and the conductor is like, no you don't. So be aware of that. Definitely spend the time double checking whether you actually need to reserve the seat or not, because it will save you a lot of money. If I remember correctly, countries like Italy and France, you should normally be reserving, but when you go more Eastern Europe, they tend to look at your Interrail and go, yeah, whatever, and just let you on. Definitely don't overlook the app and it telling you to book a ticket, but know the power of your Interrail ticket as well. Okay, for food, this is, again, like hostels, one of the biggest variants between Eastern and Western Europe. Sometimes you can live on less than 10 euros a day in Eastern Europe, but if you're in a city like Paris or Berlin, then you're gonna need to budget a little bit higher. If I'm gonna pull up my notes, I'll give you some examples of spending, and that's everything except the hostel. In Italy, I spent 24 euros one day, 23 the next, 17 the next, 29 euros the next, and 40 the final day. If I go over to Prague, for example, I spent 11 euros one day, 20 euros the next day, and 23 euros the next. One last one, Paris, spending money per day. The first day I spent 27 euros, the second day I spent 33 euros, and the third day I spent 44 euros. That's bearing in mind that I was there during Independence Day and I went to Disneyland, so you can do it cheap. There are some expensive cities out there, but I wouldn't miss out on them because you can do them cheap. And I'm going to show you how now. Let's move on to the tip section. When you're booking a hostel, if possible, book one that gives you a free breakfast. It might cost you 2 euros more but trust me, it is a lot cheaper than going to a bar and ordering a cappuccino and whatever they got going for their brunch. Honestly, the hostel breakfasts are not bad. There's coffee, which isn't great. There's normally tea, toast, eggs, cereal, milk and fruits. So I guarantee you it is worth the €2 extra that you will be paying. When you're looking at places you want to go, try and find one memorable experience of something that you want to do and you're happy to pay the extra money for it before you go. So when you actually arrive in the place, you're not like, can I spend €15 to just go up 20 meters on the Eiffel Tower? Yes. You will feel a little bit more stingy when you're actually there, so have those things planned before so that you don't miss out on a good experience. My next tip for transport is walk. We are so lazy in this generation and we tend to not walk a lot. We take Ubers everywhere, we take the subway everywhere, public transport. I know post-COVID that you maybe won't want to be doing that anyway. Just walk places. You will see so much more. Your legs will be beautifully toned and it's just funner than taking an Uber from point A to point B. Bring some cozy shoes and use those legs to walk. Fun fact, in my 6 weeks Interrailing in 2018, I walked 700,000 steps. My next tip is visit museums, especially if you're a student or you're under 25, because a lot of the time they'll be free. It's something to do with your day. It gives you a little bit of culture on the city normally, and we should be educating ourselves on the cities we're visiting, so try to, even if you don't appreciate art, try and find another type of museum. And that's a way to bulk up your day, give you more knowledge and spend less money. Moving on to food, most hostels have a kitchen. You don't want to hear it, but you need to hear it. Use the kitchen. Stop eating out in a restaurant every single day. I swear, my first Interrail, the amount of money that I spent on food when I could have been cooking my own stuff is a joke. You will not miss out if one night in Italy you decide to eat in and make your own pasta rather than going to a restaurant, and it will save you 15 bucks. I think that was my last tip. So we're coming to the final point, which is a little money recap for anyone who is nosy enough to know how much I spent. So looking at my notes, my Interrail ticket was £287. I bought a flight from Edinburgh to Barcelona and from Amsterdam to Edinburgh. So the two flights brought me up to £110. I spent a total of £750 on accommodation for the 6 weeks. I believe most of my hostels were between 25 and 30 because I did a lot of Western Europe, and also I was there peak summer, so I paid the price for it. And when I was saving up, I actually saved up €1,500 for the 6 weeks, but I didn't spend it because I was a cheapskate and I learned my lessons. So I only spent €875, which is pretty good. Now that's prices of my spending money, my hostels and my tickets, so that was really the price of everything. And for example, some attractions that I paid money for was Disneyland. I visited La Sagrada Familia in Barcelona. I went ziplining in Slovenia. I went to Hideout Festival in Croatia for 1 day, and I did many bar crawls with the hostels. So that brings my total to, that's the number you've all been waiting for. Okay, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that this cleared up some money costs that you were wondering about Interrail. My fingers are crossed for everyone who's trying to Interrail next year. Let's hope it's a possibility. Trust me, it is one of the best times of your life and you can do it cheaper than you think. Okay, thanks again and bye-bye.